but I still know it in my head, right?
Yeah.
Is when you say that I don't remember exactly how you put it, but we're connected to the one that put us here, you mean I assume or that we're also connected to each other? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all one thing. Have you ever seen that picture on Facebook that's going around? It's a picture of the cosmos and all the stars, and it's a little arrow pointing to this little dot saying, "You are here."
I have seen that a long time ago. Yeah,
There's one of Saturn up there now, and there's a tiny little dot to the left hand, and that's Earth.
Yeah, and that's the Earth.
Yeah.
You are there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole Earth, right? If you zoom way, way down, even closer, like way down, you'll find that there's actually little beings walking around that think they're separate from each other. So, it's one thing to know intellectually that you're connected to everyone. You got to also know that your senses report to you the opposite. Right? So if you believe 100% that your senses are telling you the truth, then you're always going to have a sense that you're separate from everyone.
Doesn't your ego also tell you the opposite?
And that's a part of your sensations. You know, the ego creates the thought. The ego is manufactured by thought, and that thought gives you the sensation that you're separate from everyone and everything. So that's why in satsang we try to point you to that which cannot be touched by ego. It's out of the reach of ego because it's too silent. Ego only has to do with one of those little bitty teeny tiny dots. That's all ego is. Everybody has a separate one. And then there's a collective one that we all kind of agree to participate in. So satsang is just about, okay, who am I prior to all my learning? Before I had a memory that created all my opinions, before that, I must still be that. It's like a football team. I grew up a Dallas Cowboy fan. My family, I was a Dallas Cowboy fan before I chose to be a Dallas Cowboy fan. You know, my dad, we all was Cowboy fans, watching the Cowboys. And then, when I really started watching football and paying attention, the Cowboys were at the top. They had Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and, that era. So they were winning championships. And now, not so much, right? Still the Cowboys, though. Still the Cowboys. But what's different? Everything. Different players, different uniforms, different coaches, different administration. All of that's changed, but it's still the Cowboys. That's like your higher self. You're still who you were when you were brought into this earth. Silent and still, guilt-free, like a, unconditioned, unblemished consciousness. And over the years, when you were 5 or 6, you had a certain identity that was flowing through you, and you really identified with that. And then when you were a teenager, you thought you knew who you were then, and then you grew up and you're in your lower 20s and you have this whole new identification that you identify with, and this is you, right? And then it just continues, that identity, different personnel. It's like different personnel for the football team, but it's the same team. And I'm just saying, you know, instead of identifying with all of the changes and all the different personnels and all the different opinions that flow through this being, and the body, I mean, your body started out so little, and it grew and it grew and it grew. You've lived in so many different bodies, right? And your body will continue to change and evolve, okay? But let's not identify with that which is changing constantly. Let's remember who we are, you know, at our core. Let's just bring it to our remembrance. Everything that we've accumulated, you know, prior to this moment, we don't have to give it up. All of the stuff all of the garbage that brings us pain and states that we don't like, they will naturally start to dissipate and fall away or not have as much bite. But there has to be a clear glimpse